Everyone, today we're going to continue on with section 4 in the outer solar system planets. Now remember there are 4 outer solar system planets: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. We talked about Jupiter and Saturn in the last lesson, and we also talked about how all 4 have common similarities. So let's go over those similarities. Now all of them are known as gas giants because they are mostly composed of hydrogen and helium. They have lots of moons. All of them have rings. They are typically larger and more massive. They're also colder because of their distance from the sun. And then also they have no solid surfaces if I wanted to land anything on it. So now those are some characteristics they all have in common. Let's jump into the last two, Uranus. What are some characteristics of Uranus? Well, the axis of Uranus actually is tilted more than 90 degrees. In fact, it's almost completely toppled over on its side. So while that is a distinguishing feature of Uranus, let's talk about some other features of it as well. Because Uranus is so far from the sun, it is very, very cold. Uranus's atmosphere is mostly hydrogen and helium. However, has a large amount of methane gas as part of the atmosphere as well, and this gives the planet a blue-green appearance. Now, if you don't know what methane is just CH4 gas, so it's made up of carbon and hydrogen. In terms of the structure of Uranus, like Jupiter and Saturn, it has a dense core. It's a very small, dense core. The core is thought to be surrounded by a thick mantle layer of liquid water and dissolved ammonia. And the layer of liquid hydrogen and helium is going to surround that mantle. So again, there's no solid surface. You have a liquid and gases. Just like Saturn and just like Jupiter, Uranus has rings, but they're not as visible as Saturn, so oftentimes they're very small and hard to see, but they are still there. And it has 27 moons, most of which are extremely small. Again, like we mentioned when we introduced this planet, what makes it super special is it's a tilted planet. It's nearly on its side. Remember that whole 90 degrees thing. Uranus rotates in the direction opposite the direction of its revolution around the sun, so that is another special thing about it. And its rings and moons revolve around the same tilted axis, so it's also rotating at a different angle than it's going around the sun. In terms of its hemispheres, it has a northern and southern hemisphere, and because of the tilt, it is exposed to the sun for many years. So one side is exposed to the sun for an extremely long period of time, then the other side is exposed to the sun for another long period of time. And this differences in temperature and exposure to the sun actually creates really big storms. Now, we don't know why Uranus is tilted at all, but we hypothesize that it's because something collided with it early on in its history. So here's a picture of it on its side. It spins like twirling like this while it goes around the sun, so opposite. Also, you can see the rings here, so you can see that it's nearly on its side. This last outer solar system planet that we have to talk about is Neptune. So what are some characteristics of Neptune? One of the most distinguishing characteristics of Neptune and something that it has in common with Uranus is that it has that bluish color. Again, that bluish color comes from methane in its atmosphere. So methane is CH4 gas. It is actually the farthest planet from our sun. It is so far from the sun that it takes about 165 Earth years for it to make one trip around the sun. Neptune is also about the same size and composition as Uranus as well. What makes Neptune a little bit different is just like Jupiter, there are very visible cloud patterns that you can see in the atmosphere. There are thin, wispy clouds form high in Neptune's atmosphere. Now, these clouds are made up of methane ice crystals since methane is found in its atmosphere, so I'm going to go ahead and underline that. And because of this, these cloud patterns in this visible banding. Just like Jupiter, there are also large storms in its atmosphere. One storm that was observed by the Voyager 2 space probe in 1989 was called the Great Dark Spot. However, by 1994, the storm was gone and we can no longer see it. So here is a photo taken by the Voyager 2 spacecraft, and the Great Dark Spot is located right here, and it has long disappeared. Now, Neptune, just like the other planets, have very thin rings, similar to Uranus, and also it has 13 moons. The moons are named Triton, which is the only large moon that rotates around Neptune, and it has a thin atmosphere and a very icy surface, similar to Neptune as well. So that's the end of today's lesson. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to help. And I hope you guys have a good day.